at the same time. Think of all of the stars shining at the same time, all the leaders leading at the same time. I spent some time in the Boundary Waters. It's kind of a dark screen, kind of a dark photo. You might not be able to see it. Super great. But I spent some time at the Boundary Waters this past, a couple weeks ago. I think we spent 4 days there. And my friends, the stars at the Boundary Waters are unlike anything I've ever seen. You don't get that quite here in the cities. There's all that light pollution. There's all of this man activity. But in the Boundary Waters, it's completely untouched. And I would sit there and stand there, hearing the waves of the water, and I would just look up, and I would see this. Thousands of lights. There was actually the Aurora Borealis. The northern lights were also present when we were there, which was profound. But I couldn't help but just look up with a sense of awe, a sense of appreciation for how small I am. Not out of this trying to put myself in this box or trying to belittle or diminish my power, but in a way that feels in the depth of my ownness that I am a part, you are a part of something bigger. So to talk a little bit, last week, we're just going to review here for a second. Last week, I gave a talk called The Most I Am. Just briefly, this is my band's name. It has very deep and rich meanings to me. Ultimately, I broke it up into 2 spots. There was the I Am, which is that divine nature, that sense of the God spark within you. God isn't this thing that we reach for. God isn't this thing that we try to appease and try to earn his love. I was blessed at the last board meeting to listen to the Rolifsons share some of their ideas. And they shared with me how important it feels to them to amplify this message that God is inside of you. And then there was the divine promise, the promise that there is more out there for you. That's what we talked about last week. So to start today's conversation, as we dive into this idea of a part of something bigger, I'm telling my story with Unity South and kind of weaving in the Unity South narrative to this beautiful place that so many of us call our spiritual home. And I'm going to start with just a thought by James Allen. I got this quote from Spiritual Economics. It's in there with Eric Butterworth quotes James Allen in here. And here's the quote. And this sort of just sets the mood of today's talk, so I hope you'll weave it throughout with me. Dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, you shall become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your idea is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil. So my story with Unity South Twin Cities. And what we've accomplished together. We've accomplished a lot. But it would be silly of me, here I am. This is when I first started coming here, on the left. And this was taken last week. I don't know, when I look at these photos, I can't help but think, and I don't mean this in a diminishing way, but I can't help but think the gentleman on his right, on my right, your right, I mean, it seems so obvious that he's more in tune with his sense of inner light. It's just present. You can see it. Now, I think it would be silly of me to say Unity South gets all the credit, but certainly it gets some. Let me tell you that. But I couldn't tell. So here's what I've learned about the sabbatical. We are all in, and we are an all-in community of leaders. We're all in on prayer. We're all in on the willingness to do what's necessary to keep this church moving. And there's a lot of things that have happened that have made some challenges and all of that. We're going to touch base on that. But I just want to acknowledge that we are all in, and it's obvious to me. Our beloved Reverend James, what a beautiful face, huh? Who's excited to welcome him back? Yeah. This sabbatical, I'm telling you what, it has been hours and 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 hours. You get the point. A lot of work has gone into this by a lot of people. And there have been some bumps in the road. It hasn't been seamless. Such is life. Life is messy. But if I may here, if you have in any way contributed to the support of getting Reverend James' sabbatical, you volunteered, you're a part of a committee, you helped raise funds, you donated funds, you gave a talk, you helped in the office, anything of the sorts, could you please stand? Anything of the sorts, please stand. Please stand. Can we just give these folks a wonderful round of applause? I think so often when we come here on a Sunday and we feel nourished, it's really hard to forget, or really easy to forget just how much effort, how much loving action is necessary to create this experience. And I think sometimes we take that for granted. So in order to tell this story, I have to kind of tell the story of Unity South, because it's not really just about me. It's about us. And Unity South has a really rich history. And so there's a little bit of a historical context in this share, but I hope you'll see how it all circles around. So in 1982, there were three folks, Bob Carlson, Rudy Arneson, and Leonard Anderson. They were very excited about the idea of bringing the unity consciousness to the South Metro. And when I say the unity consciousness, I mean that idea that God is within you and all of the wonderful things that the Fillmores taught. And so they met with Reverend Don Clark over at Unity, what is now called Unity Minneapolis. And they agreed, yes, this is something we are going to pursue. We are going to go all in on this idea. And that photo to the right is where they originally met. That is Lincoln High School here in Bloomington. And so those three leaders did what was theirs to do. They had this divine idea, and they followed through with it. Okay, well, fast forward to 1984. There was a minister before that was an interim minister, but in 1984, Reverend Phil Laporte was hired for Unity South. And it grew, and it grew. Some of you knew because you were there. And it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew. And then in 1992, something magical happened. Well, that something magical is what we're standing in. This building was erected from nothing. From the idea of we need something to better support our community, and well, here came the building. But something else really interesting happened in 1992. That guy was born. That's me. I was born in 1992. I am the same age as this building. That's fascinating to me. I remember celebrating the 30th birthday of this building like a week after my 30th birthday, so it felt really, really important. And here we are. Then in 2017, we hired this beloved man, Reverend James Stacy. 2018, I showed up with my wonderful wife, Nicole. Everybody say hi, Nicole. If you haven't had a chance to talk to her, oh yeah, we could give her a round of applause. Every time I do that, every time I introduce you or say something about you, people start clapping, so take that as a sign. 2018, I showed up. I showed up because I was feeling lonely in my spiritual life, but I was not looking for a church. I typed into my search engine, Rudolf Steiner's study group near me. And I personally was studying this book, Knowledge of the Higher Worlds and Its Attainment. And I was sick of being alone. I was sick of studying it alone. I wanted to find other people that I related to, that I could connect with. And so I joined this book group. I had no idea what I was getting into. I had no idea what I would find. And then after I've been studying in that book group for a while, me and my partner were like, yeah, let's try finding a spiritual home. So we kind of went on, the church shopping. Everybody's done it, going over here, going over there. Some places are going, hey, you're a sinner, you should probably fix that. And then I walked into here, and some interesting things happened. I walked in, and I saw this face. What a face. What a power. What a presence. Except Marlene. This is Marlene Qualley. Everybody say hi, Marlene. When we walked in and we saw Marlene, Nicole, my wife, she's like, I know her. So it turns out Nicole's mom has a rich, rich history in the recovery community. And Marlene played a huge role in Ruth reclaiming her life, reclaiming her sobriety, reclaiming who she was. And so there was a weird familiarity that I felt with Marlene, given the context of our relationship. And because of that familiarity, we really stuck around. We really started to identify as somebody who comes to Unity South Twin Cities. That Unity South Twin Cities felt like our spiritual home. Anybody else feel that? Of course, yeah, show your hands. Who else feels like this is their spiritual home? Oh, what a beautiful thing. Can we just hold a moment of silence for Marlene Qualley and all the wonderful work she's done for Unity South? And may we say together, we love you, Marlene. 1, 2, 3. We love you, Marlene. So this is what makes my Unity South story feel so important to me. I was here, and I was experiencing God. I wasn't just talking about God. I wasn't just contemplating the thoughts of God. I was experiencing God in the way that Patty gives me a hug, in the way that Mark makes me laugh, in the way that Tyler runs around checking all the boxes, making sure that whoever's up here looks good, sounds good, and has everything they need. And the way the newcomers I get to see smile at me and say that they're happy to be here. And the way that the crazy fingers on this piano move faster than I can even think. Crazy fingers, crazy fingers. This is the place I came where I didn't need to pretend anymore. I could just be the exact expression of how I was showing up this Sunday, and I would be seen. Anybody else sick of pretending? And then in 2020, something global happened, right? The pandemic. It changed some things here. But guess what it showed us? That we are an all-in community of leaders. And what did we do? Well, we got to work. We did what was ours to do. We made sure we installed a system so our message could still reach the people which we are inspired to serve. We wrote grants. Gosh, we wrote so many grants, my friends, to raise the funds so that we could do all of that. Patty Tangi played a really important role in that. We didn't miss a single Sunday throughout that entire experience. That's how committed this team is. It would have been so easy to just say, no, you know what? There's a pandemic going on, and let's just take this Sunday off. But we didn't. And so again, if you played a part in any of that, in any of the COVID planning, in any of the facilitation of the technology or the donations or the whatever, any of that, please stand. Please stand. Yeah. Tyler, I'm surprised you're not standing, brother. Yeah. That's okay. Then, in 2023, while other churches were closing their doors because COVID really affected them, we were doing something else. We were paying off our mortgage. Yeah, that's good. We can accomplish that. Yeah. We were reorganizing our sanctuary, getting new carpet, expanding the stage, preparing ourselves for the next iteration of Unity South. Wow, that's pretty radical. Because we are an all-in community of leaders. It's not just one person, my friends. I'd love to tell you, oh, I'm doing it all. Look at me. Look at this cool suit. I've saved Unity South. Well, one, Unity South doesn't need any saving. That's one idea. But the second, my friends, there is so much potential in this room. There are so many wonderful leaders who are in service of this bigger thing than all of us that we call Unity South. Then in 2024, our beloved Judy, by the way, we're celebrating her on October 13th. Please put that in your calendar. She fell ill. She's healthy, she's safe, but because she fell ill, she found it hard to travel back and forth to be here at Unity South. And so, well, what did our team do? Well, we figured it out. We stumbled forward. We're like, all of these responsibilities that were once our beloved music directors needed to still get taken care of. Who's going to do it? There was no flow chart that said, if Judy's not here, then this. We just showed up and tried to make it happen, and we haven't missed a single Sunday. So again, if you were a part of that process in the coordinating and the volunteering and the fundraising and the calling, please stand up. Jimmy, that's you too, mister. Let's hear for them. And then, of course, another example of how Unity South is an all-in community of leaders. I wonder if you're getting the point. Am I being too redundant? Because it's not really about my story. My story is great. My story is personal to me. My story feels rich and alive for me. And I feel deeply blessed by all the wonderful things that this community has done for me and by all the wonderful ways I get to give back to this wonderful community. But it's really our Unity South story, isn't it? It's really our experience coming here and experiencing God, and our experience coming here and being affirmed of the infinite God that already lives in you. That place where we can come and just be exactly who we are without pretending, without trying to fix anything, but just to be seen. It's a nourishing feeling. Because Unity South, to me, is a torch. It's a beacon. It's a guiding light as we navigate the complexities of our time. And it always has been. When Phil Laporte was here, I wasn't even born yet. Yet here I am, receiving the wisdom, receiving the efforts, receiving the grace of all of the effort that came before me. And so last week I shared a quote from George Bernard, and I'm not going to share the whole quote again, but there's a component of it that feels really important to me in this context. Life is no brief candle for me. It's a sort of splendid torch, what I have got a hold of for the moment. And I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. It would be silly of me to not acknowledge the rich history, the rich roots that have got Unity South to where it is, ranging all the way back to the original idea of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And then to Phil Laporte and the three people who started it, and then to come in here and then to build the building and all the wonderful hands that went into it. Then the question becomes, well, what's happening in the future? Where are we going? And all I can tell you is a humble I don't know. All I can tell you is a humble I don't know. But what I do know is that there has been a pattern recurringly present in Unity South. And I wonder if you know what I'm going to say here. Oh, I'm not going back to that. My bad. I do know this when it comes to the future. In 2 weeks, Reverend James Stacy is going to be back. And he's coming back to a different congregation than when he left. A congregation that has listened to each other. A congregation that feels heard. A congregation that says, I'm willing. And I am so excited to see what's going to emerge from that. So really today's conversation is really an intention to really honor all that has gotten us here. The leaders of our rich history, their gestures of love and care to keep that idea alive in these walls, that idea of you are already infinite God potential. To honor the leaders of today. There are many wonderful leaders in this room. And to honor the leaders that are yet to find us. Because there is going to be a transitionary time. Unity South will absolutely outlive me. It will absolutely outlive you. And the handing of that torch is a very sacred moment. And I want the Unity South torch to burn as bright as possible before handing it off. Because we are an all-in community of leaders. And our commitment as Unity South is to be an organization that embraces, loves, and empowers all who enter that door back there. In fact, one of my favorite parts about being at Unity South is when people come in, you'll notice I'm usually kind of hovering around at the door, kind of like just scoping it out, waiting for whoever shows up so that I can just be like, oh, so good to see you, Jade. I'm so happy you're here. And there's a level of enthusiasm, but it feels so real for me. It feels so real. That's my favorite part of Unity South is that welcomingness. And this is where I feel we've done such a phenomenal job of flexing and cultivating and practicing the Unity's fifth principle. Because we could talk about all these God ideas, we could talk about it all day, but we've demonstrated over and over and over and over again throughout time that the fifth principle is knowing and understanding the laws of life, also called truth, are not enough. A person must also live the truth that he or she knows. To live it. And I think we've done a phenomenal job at that. And I think we are doing a phenomenal job at that. And I personally am so excited to see what happens when Reverend James returns. Because we are a part of something bigger. This Unity South Twin Cities container that we all show up to is a great vehicle. And it is distributing so much good to so many people. And just from my heart to yours, I'm grateful to be a part of it. Thank you for collaborating with me in the ways that we get to. And I think it's a bright future here. So that's all I have to share today. And I'm hopeful that you're taking a moment to think about, what is your Unity South story? Whether you've been here for 40 years, whether today is your first time. Dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, you shall become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your idea is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil. Thank you for leading with me, Unity South. We've got a long way to go. We'll see where time takes us. And I honor the God in each of you. Thank you.